Very happy to be here. I was supposed to be here last year, but things got canceled because of COVID. And then this year, I can't be there in person, unfortunately, because we're doing some work in the field under some reasonably strict COVID policies. So I have to be working remotely right now, unfortunately, sorry. But I'm very happy to be telling you a bit about what we're doing because we are building a lot right now. Next slide. Yeah, so just to tell you, perfect, yeah, one more slide. Just to say a little bit about what QTech is. So QTech, we are this mission-driven institute. As Chris said, we are a partnership between TU Delft and TNO here in the Netherlands. We are working hard with industry partners. My own team, we're mostly engineers and not just scientists, for instance, because we're really trying to build things and get prototypes and systems out for things like quantum internet and quantum computer. Next slide. And we're well positioned actually inside of the quantum internet game. So QTech is the leader of something called the Quantum Internet Alliance, which has a whole host of partners across Europe inside of KIA, the Quantum Internet Alliance, including AMS-IX as one of our industrial partners. And it's not just Europe where things are happening. Next slide. There's activities actually everywhere at the moment. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a quantum network that China has built. There's a backbone that's running across the country and little networks all over the place. China's even launched a quantum satellite that beams down quantum entanglement to various locations. There's efforts going on in Germany, in Eastern Europe, and also the United States has started their coordinated approach to quantum networking. So people are coming together. Large consortiums are getting formed. And here inside of Europe, we're lucky because of KIA and the European Union is really backing this right now. Next slide. And in the Netherlands in particular, we applied recently for something which we call the National Agenda Quantum Technologies for a large chunk of funding to something called growth funds in English. The purpose behind this, it's a 7-year project. The goals are to really be building a lot of tech, form 100 new companies, train 2,000 new engineers to fill up these companies, and get 3 big corporate R&D labs somewhere inside of the Netherlands. That sounds super ambitious. Next slide. And we got a lot to back this up. So actually, we were one of the few proposals that supported this to the tune of 615 million euros over the next 7 years. So there's a lot we can be doing, which is great. And one big pillar inside of this, next slide, is something we call the CAT2, which is essentially building an extended quantum internet around the Netherlands. We have little segments being built right now in Delft, where we are with QTech, and in Eindhoven, and we're looking to extend these out over to, say, Leiden, all the way into Amsterdam. We want to build a national staging network that people can connect to. We want to take a leadership role inside of Europe. That's the reason why we set up KIA and the next iterations of KIA and such and such. And we want to be building and connecting to other organizations in Europe as well. So there is very fortunate, there is a program at the European level called EuroQCI, the European Quantum Communication Infrastructure, and they are supporting these cross-border links. So we're looking to get connected to Germany and Belgium and France and such and such. Yeah, next slide. So that's kind of broadly what's happening. There's a lot and we have support and there's a lot of activity right now, but you may still be asking, what is quantum internet? And when I talk to such a broad audience, I always like to give kind of the key facts that I hope people take away, because sometimes there are some misunderstandings here. Next slide. So here, this is just my list, what I have from the past experience, the main things, misconceptions, let's say. First point. Yeah, the quantum internet is not going to replace conventional networks. We are not here to replace the work that AMS-IX or any other network does. We're only going to supplement it with additional functionality. Next point. And that functionality is based on quantum tech. We're going to do things with qubits, and we're going to do things with quantum entanglement, and we're going to do things with quantum computers. It's unique quantum services that will work on top of the existing internet. Next point. We work very much at layer 1. We work very much with fibers and with optics. We are always connected to fiber networks, let's say. So think of us as really needing access to whatever the infrastructure is at your locations. Next slide. And right now, because we're dealing with quantum and we deal with single particles of light at a time, we can only tolerate so much loss, let's say, or so much distance. Sometimes we call it quantum distance. So whenever we're setting up applications or POCs, we're always looking for low loss links, something like 30 dB between user to user or so. Next slide, next point, thank you. We rely on infrastructure locations. We always go in and we put our equipment into infrastructure locations that have things like electricity and cooling, access controls and logging and security. I think of this as normal stuff for those already working in telecommunications. Next point. And what we do, everything can be made just 19 Interact compatible. Actually, the work we're doing now in the field at the moment, we're actually just wheeling racks from one location to another. This is the kind of level of tech that we have right now. We can really wheel racks into actual locations, actual infrastructure locations, plug into the fiber network and start working. Next slide. But that probably doesn't tell you who the quantum internet is for. The kind of applications we think of are along the lines of these four little individuals we see on the slide right here. So maybe the top left, there are some people who say, hey, I have a lot of important data traffic on my network and I want to keep this very secure. Quantum can help you there. Or in the top right, I have a secret key. I want a secret key. I want to authenticate some documents before I send it into the network. Quantum can help you there. The bottom right, you might be someone who says, I have very secretive data, but I want to be processing it on one of these quantum computers. But I want to keep that data secure and secret. Not even the quantum computer should know what it is. Quantum can help you there. And there's also something about quantum computers wanting to connect to each other in the future, cloud computing. Quantum can help there too. Quantum internet can help in all these scenarios. Next slide. The general theme in all of this is secure communications. That's exactly what we're doing. And there's two reasons why we're able to do this. The first is we're going to send qubits into this fiber network. And the thing is, if anyone looks at those qubits, if anyone attempts to look at them, just doing any measurement inherently disturbs that qubit. This is something we learned in, at least where I'm from, we learned in high school physics. And that inherent disturbance by anyone else looking at our qubit, we can pick up and measure. And thus we know if anyone is trying to tap our communications or listen to our communications. And on the other spectrum, there's the idea that if we have entanglement between two locations, no one else can be entangled to those locations as well. So entanglement, we almost say it's monogamous. If we make entanglement between two places, no one else can have access to that. So as long as you remember these two rules, especially rule number one, you'll understand why this stuff works, I think. Next slide. Now there's a lot on this one. This is the general roadmap that we're pursuing towards. This blue line that you see, this blue arrow going from the bottom up, this is supposed to show the evolution of the quantum functionality that we're working on. We started, the whole community started with qubit transmission. We're going to generate qubits, we're going to put them in optical fibers, and we're going to send them somewhere. We started there, and then we moved up to qubit transmission, multi-point though, multi-point to multi-point. Then we're working on quantum entanglement, quantum memory and processors, and quantum computing. Yeah? It's an evolution of quantum functionality as we move up this blue arrow. And as we do that, new applications open up right at the bottom right now. You can actually buy this tech if you want. There's companies available in China and Switzerland, in Japan, the United States. You can buy this if you want. You can do qubit transmission point to point, and you can get the application called quantum key distribution. Basically, a technique that allows you to distribute cryptographic keys for things like symmetric encryption or authentication or something like this. You can buy this. What we and many others are working on now is that next step. We're ready to, this has all been done in the lab, and we're moving this out at the moment. That's exactly what we're installing right now, which is multi-point to multi-point qubit transmission. We want to build networks bigger. And that allows us to do things like, again, quantum key distribution of cryptographic keys for encryption, but multi-point to multi-point, so we don't have to trust people in between. We can route this wherever we want inside the network. And the other thing in QTech we're working on is, these are very early field trials right now, but getting this quantum entanglement and quantum processors out into the world. Okay, I'm going to say the same slide one more time, but in a slightly different way that hopefully like really hits the message home. Next slide. Right now, what we can do, we can build quantum key distribution networks. We can do end-to-end distribution of qubits to get conventional cryptographic keys into new locations. There's a limited amount of loss, about 30 dB or so, but this is really today's technology. We can do this. Next slide, next bullet actually. Later, we will get to that higher up functionality where we look at entanglement distribution and we look at quantum algorithms on quantum computers, and we look at doing this all over the world with satellites and whatever. But that's for the future. Today, quantum key distribution. Next slide. Why is it important? Let me tell you why that's important. Why QKD is important. Next slide. The reason is because of this. Unfortunately, well, in crypto packages today, there are all sorts of crypto algorithms being used. There's something like AES-256 for encryption. There's RSA for key distribution. And what's unfortunate is that quantum computers are very good at certain things. They are very good at things in chemistry. They are very good at things in biology and medicine, but they are also very good at breaking crypto. And that's unfortunate. It turns out if there is a large-scale quantum computer available, it will very quickly be able to break something like RSA. It'll very quickly be able to break all our public key infrastructure techniques right now that we use for key distribution. And so on the quantum internet side, what we're doing is we're trying to make sure that when that quantum computer comes available, there are solutions ready for key distribution that are not susceptible to quantum attacks. Next bullet. There's 3 ways right now that we're all looking at. One is increase key sizes. People can do this. That's going to help you a little bit. There's another field of research called post-quantum crypto. These are new algorithms trying to develop new cryptographic algorithms that are secure against quantum computers. People are working on this. The problem is, an issue there is they will always be eventually crackable. And the other line, which is what we're working on, is quantum key distribution. And that's using physical devices secured by some of these quantum rules of quantum physics to distribute keys between locations. So we can replace the public key infrastructure or supplement the public key infrastructure, supplement post-quantum crypto with a physical way to distribute keys for secure communication. This is why you should care, okay? Next slide. Let me show you exactly, or at least as best I can in the time we have left, how this is gonna work roughly. Next slide. The idea behind it, it's really quite simple, what you need to know. We build these blue boxes you see on the slide. We call them QKD boxes. These are literally hardware devices that plug into the fiber network. They generate qubits. They put these qubits into the optical fiber. They transmit these through whoever's, yours, AMS-IX's, other telcos, optical fiber network to some kind of receiving station. If that data makes it, if those qubits make it, we check. Was anyone looking at them or not? If no one was looking, we process that. This happens inside the boxes. We process that into a cryptographic key, and then we hand that cryptographic key up, using those blue arrows, for instance, into whatever kind of conventional crypto boxes or crypto application you or others might have. This could be like a line encryptor operating at layer 1, for instance. It could be a VPN tunnel. VPN boxes operating at like layer 3, TLS. We plug into MACsec cards on occasion, IPsec, whatever. But it's really boxes. They plug into the network and they will produce keys, and we'll push these keys out. Thanks very much. Yep. Okay, go forward, next slide. Good. So here's what we have. Some of the applications people are talking about, okay? If you're in financials, we're talking about things like encryption of high value traffic, like financial transactions. In critical infrastructure, people talk about securing that control plane or that management plane. In data centers, people talk about encrypting the backbone between data centers or to cloud computing centers. There's lots of applications. I encourage you to take a screenshot of this slide. Next slide. Like I said, you can buy this today. It is commercial. The downside of the commercial solutions is that they are either as seen on the left side, point to point, which scales very terribly, or they rely on what's called a trusted node, which means you need to have a trusted location that can handle all your secrets. That can be a real risk. Next slide. What we're making in QTech is we're moving on to this qubit transmission multi-point to multi-point. We're working on something called MDI. Fancy acronym, don't worry about it, QKD, multi-point to multi-point QKD. And what's key about it is that this is more secure than some of the existing, well, the existing commercial solutions. We use a center node, but that center node operates just as a telephone switchboard operator. It just plugs in people together and links connections together. And it does some special quantum physics to make sure that no information can be leaked or gained. No secure information can be learned if someone gains access to that center node. It's fundamentally secured. Next slide. Everything we do, it's inherently networked, right? Like I said, multi-point to multi-point. We work in star-shaped networks, always. Every user needs only a connection to that center node, and they can generate cryptographic keys with everyone else inside the network. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, more cost effective. That's the other thing that we've done too. This center node is critical, not just to today with QKD, but also for future quantum internet. We have a whole roadmap lined up here inside of QTech, and these center nodes are needed for everything that's coming in the future. Quantum memories, quantum processors, cloud quantum computing. It's the same center nodes we use in all of our work. Next slide. This is literally where we are today. After this call, I'm running out in the field to be moving one of these racks to one of the locations. We are laying down an inner city MDI QKD network right now. It's going from Delft to Rijswijk to The Hague. On the right-hand side, sorry, this is literally a picture of one of the end nodes that's going in. It's a rack-mounted box. It's about 6 U in height. That's it. That's what we do. And also importantly, later this network will be upgrading with some prototype entanglement distribution stuff as well. Okay, next slide. I honestly think if the willpower is there and people are interested, within a couple years, say 2 or 3 years, we could be building this. Next slide. A couple center nodes here in the Netherlands. These are high bandwidth center nodes acting as routing nodes, untrusted routing nodes, with users connected to one or both of them for redundancy. We could build a lot of these inside the Netherlands if there's interest there, if people want to become a part of this. The question is, who's going to be those center nodes? And who are going to be those users that want to use this cryptographic keys that we're able to produce? Next slide. I just show you this again, in case you want to take a screenshot. Good. And then, yeah, that's okay. Next slide, once more. So again, this is where we are. We're setting up the network now. We at QTech, a lot of engineers, we want to move to more industrial operational settings. We want to learn to provide a real service to real users. We have to learn stuff there. We have to learn how to connect to other people, both the software and hardware level. We want to integrate with other cryptographic packages, cryptographic hardware, cryptographic systems. We want to expand this network. It's 2 nodes now, but we can plug in other things as necessary. And we want to build other versions of this inside the Netherlands as we move towards building the CAT2, this national network, as part of our national agenda. And of course, our plan is be prepared for quantum internet. Everything we do is designed to be upgradable. Thank you very much. Next slide, and then I'll stop there.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Joshua Slater. Can you see and hear me now?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for this very entangling story. And I also like your background picture, because that's the campus of QTech. And if you go there, you can really see the quantum computers. And yeah, well, people, quantum internet is here. The bad news is that quantum computers will crack existing encryption. The good news is the quantum internet will solve it, which brings us to the first question from Edwin de Boer. Do I understand that the security of the quantum internet will be is well organized, or will you ensure that it does not end up in the wrong hands? You can probably imagine who that is, but
yeah, that's a good question, and I guess the same questions that get played with all security technology. There are concerns in terms of exporting to the wrong people. We've already have in place, thankfully, export control for the kind of technology we work on, quantum key distribution. So there are already some controls in place to make sure that, let's say checks to make sure that we work with the right people.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And talk about the wrong people, they're already collecting now to decrypt later, but you probably know that story.
Exactly.
The next question from Edwin Veldman. Is there a role for Amsterdam Internet Exchange in the quantum internet story? We're here at More IP. The quantum internet, it also works on internet protocol or not?
Yes, it does. Okay, very much, yeah.
So is there a role for Amsterdam Internet Exchange with the coming quantum internet? Might we be the first quantum internet exchange? I don't know if you need an exchange, but...
It could be, actually. I very much believe a good use case for quantum, especially what we're doing, is something like a midpoint station sitting inside of an internet exchange with the users being two different networks, and then allowing to create cryptographic keys between two networks for secure communication across that potentially untrusted, sorry, AMS-IX, potentially untrusted internet exchange.
Yes. Okay. A question for a very short answer. Is this MDI quantum crypto distribution network between Delft and Rijswijk similar to that of the TU Eindhoven as built between Eindhoven and Walgen? Is that similar?
Yes.
Oh, that's similar.
Similar.
Okay. That was from Peter van Rosmalen. And the final question from Bert de Kort. Quantum internet and quantum computing use fiber only as a transfer path, as I understand. What does that mean in terms of available capacity on fiber routes and or in the DC areas?
Yeah, no, it's true. We use fibers basically exclusively. We already integrate into existing lighting equipment, for instance. So we can drop our qubits into a particular WDM channel and let conventional networking equipment use other WDM channels, and we filter stuff out and take care of that to make sure we don't disturb the quantum signals. So there is the necessary for fiber routes between users, is definitely true, but we can get away with just a couple channels inside that particular fiber.
Oh, that's actually quite similar to the normal internet. We have time for one last question.
Yeah.
Is there special power or temperature requirements? As I remember at QTech, you had this small chip of 40 qubits, but it needs 2 stores of cooling equipment. But how about the quantum internet? Will the whole country be built with cooling equipment? Or does it only work on the North Pole?
No. Actually, that's a really good question too, for those that are in the know. Quantum computers work at very low temperatures, like minus 290 or so. 270, sorry. The quantum internet tech that we work on does not. And that's an important decision that we made to make sure that things work at regular, let's say, riser room conditions or regular telco conditions. Otherwise, yeah, we would have problems getting things out there. Yeah.
Okay, Joshua, thank you very much. I believe quantum is here to stay. So with the next editions of More IP, will be more talks about the quantum internet, which you successfully kicked off. Thank you very much, Joshua Slater.
Thank you.